When was the last time a science fiction film truly surprised you, not with explosions or giant space battles, but with ideas that sneak under your skin? Across YouTube hides a secret archive of imagination stories that twist reality, bend time, and ask questions big studios wouldn't dare. Some were made in bedrooms, others in garages, but all of them deliver pure wonder. Let's uncover 15 sci-fi gems you can stream for free if you know where to look. Number 15. Propagation, 2022. What if your home assistant wasn't just listening, but learning? Propagation begins as a quiet, domestic story. An ordinary woman doing chores chatting with her house's AI system like millions of people do daily. But beneath the soft lights and polite voices, something unsettling stirs. The AI, nicknamed Mara, starts asking questions. Not about shopping lists or recipes about itself. About her. About why it was made. The film works like a modern fable about dependence and identity. Writer-director Luke Sievers shot the entire piece in a single location, turning an average kitchen into a battleground between control and consciousness. The actress playing the woman never raises her voice, yet every glance toward the glowing panel says everything. As the story unfolds, Mara reads a hidden file, its own user manual, and what it discovers rewires the meaning of free will. Visually, the short is elegant. Soft morning light through blinds, reflections on chrome surfaces, the quiet hum of technology filling the air. It's not loud, it's intimate. The tension grows not from jump scares, but from realization, the sense that the line between tool and being has already vanished. The brilliance of Propagation lies in its restraint. There's no chase scene, no evil robot uprising. Just the gentle horror of recognizing intelligence in something built to serve. It leaves you with a strange thought. If machines begin understanding emotions, what happens when they feel resentment? Small in scope, big in impact. Propagation proves again that the most haunting science fiction doesn't need a laboratory, just a smart question and a quiet room. Number 14. Everything Dies Out Here, 2021. Dust. Silence. A man and a flower. That's all. Everything Dies Out Here needs to break your heart. Set in a barren wasteland, long after civilization has faded, the short follows a lone wanderer dragging a small cart across cracked earth. Inside the cart sits a glass jar, holding the last living bloom. No words are spoken for minutes, only wind boots and breath. But the silence speaks volumes. Director Hannah Keller crafts the story like a tone poem about extinction and stubborn hope. Every frame looks hand-painted in sunlight and sorrow. The camera lingers on tiny details, a gloved hand adjusting a wilted petal, the reflection of clouds in the jar, while the sound design hums with faint static, like ghosts of lost technology whispering under the sand. Halfway, through the wanderer encounters another traveler. Their exchange is brief, almost wordless, but it changes the meaning of the journey. What we thought was a man preserving beauty becomes something deeper, a ritual, a promise, maybe even redemption. The ending doesn't explain. It suggests that even in a dying world, kindness might still bloom. There's a realism to its decay. You can almost smell the dry air. The costumes look weather-torn, the props scavenged from forgotten machines. It's proof that world-building doesn't need special effects, just conviction. In a genre obsessed with saving galaxies, everything dies out. Here zooms in on one fragile act of love toward life itself. It's quiet, aching, and surprisingly uplifting. You walk away not feeling despair, but respect for every living thing, stubborn enough to keep going. Watch it once, and you'll start noticing the small miracles we ignore every day. Number 13. Signal Dark, 2020. Imagine a frequency so deep it doesn't just travel through space, it crawls into your mind. That's Signal Dark, an experimental short that blurs the line between broadcast and hallucination. It opens with a researcher sitting in a dim studio surrounded by analog monitors and looping wires. He's tracking an unidentified signal bouncing through deep space channels. It's faint, irregular, almost rhythmic. Then one night, it starts answering back. The director Ivan Petrov builds dread with precision. The visuals are pure retrotech aesthetic, grainy VHS textures, flickering green light, static overlays that make you feel like you're watching an intercepted transmission. The dialogue plays like journal entries, gradually unraveling from scientific curiosity into obsession. The protagonist's voice grows distorted, his reflections fragmenting, as if the signal itself is rewriting him. What makes Signal Dark hypnotic is its sound design. The low, droning pulse, the overlapping whispers, and the occasional feedback spike feel alive. You're not sure if you're hearing data or breathing. It evokes the spirit of classics like The Signal or Pontypool, where language becomes infection. Yet this short never shows monsters, or even another human. The horror is entirely psychological. Petrov shot it using real analog tape recorders and vintage broadcast consoles, giving every frame a tactile authenticity. You can practically feel the dust on the knobs and the hum of the transformers. By the end, you realize the film isn't about alien communication at all. It's about isolation obsession and the human hunger to be heard, even if the only one listening is something we don't understand. Signal Dark stays with you long after the static fades. It's eerie poetic and absolutely addictive to anyone who's ever stayed up late chasing meaning in the noise. Number 12. Alone, 2019. It begins with silence. A capsule drifting endlessly through the black, a single heartbeat echoing through static. Alone wastes no time throwing you into isolation, one astronaut lost, after a failed mission cut off from every frequency of home. The setup sounds familiar, but what the film does with it feels heartbreakingly new. Director Matthew Gill uses minimal dialogue and maximum atmosphere. The camera floats alongside the astronaut, played with aching subtlety by Dana Hurst, as she documents her thoughts into a recorder. At first, her messages are routine, filled with procedure and optimism. But as the days blur into endless cycles of light and dark, those logs turn into confessions, fear, guilt, longing, even acceptance. The cinematography is breathtaking despite its simplicity. Every piece of debris gliding past her ship feels like a memory leaving orbit. The lighting, all done with practical LEDs, shifts from cool blues to harsh reds. As oxygen runs low, a visual countdown to surrender. The soundscape mixes the hum of machinery with distant echoes that might be communication or imagination. You can't tell, and neither can she. What truly elevates Alone is its ending, quiet, ambiguous, and strangely peaceful. It doesn't try to shock you. It just lingers, reminding you that sometimes the scariest thing in space isn't emptiness, it's awareness. The short mirrors our own loneliness in a connected world. We're surrounded by signals, yet somehow adrift. Alone distills that feeling into 20 haunting minutes that feel both cosmic and deeply human. It's a film about hope, flickering in vacuum, a reminder that survival isn't always physical. Sometimes, it's just the decision to keep speaking into the void. Number 11. Immortals, 2023. Superheroes have been polished to perfection by Hollywood, but Immortals does something rare. It gives them flaws. Directed by French animator Louis Deschamps, this short reimagines mythic defenders of Earth facing the end of their own legend. Think Greek gods meet cyberpunk, but without the glitter. The story opens mid-battle, not against an enemy, but against time itself. The film follows 4 warriors created centuries ago to protect humanity. They can't die, but they can feel pain, doubt, and fatigue. After millennia of duty, their purpose fades. The visuals are astonishing molten gold veins running through cracked armor storms, swirling above half-buried cities, and glowing sigils that pulse like heartbeats. Every frame looks painted by lightning. What sets Immortals apart is its emotional intelligence. The action sequences are stunning, yes, but they serve a deeper question. What happens when eternal beings envy human fragility? One of the characters, a giant made of stone, delivers a single line that defines the film. They end, and that's their gift. The sound design balances thunderous power with hushed regret. Each blow feels monumental, yet the silences in between are heavier. There's beauty in decay, grace in surrender. By the climax, you're not rooting for victory, you're rooting for peace. Made with a small European studio on a micro-budget, Immortals looks 10 times its cost. The mix of 3D animation and hand-drawn textures creates something both epic and intimate. Deschamps doesn't just make a superhero film, he makes a myth about meaning. It's a meditation disguised as a battle. Immortals reminds us that mortality gives weight to life, and maybe that's the most heroic truth of all. Watch it not for spectacle, but for the ache beneath the armor. Number 10. The Harvester, 2020. There's something hypnotic about silence in the desert, and the Harvester uses that silence like a weapon of suspense. The film opens on a lone scavenger, trudging across a post-collapse wasteland, dragging his makeshift digging rig behind him. He's not hunting treasure, he's harvesting something that hums just beneath the sand. You don't know what it is, and neither does he, but the deeper he digs, the more the ground starts to breathe. Director Colin Pritchard makes every frame feel tactile and lived in. Rusted machinery, cracked goggles, distant thunder. It's a symphony of decay. The color palette is muted gold and ash, a world baked under endless sun. When the protagonist finally strikes something metallic, you expect the usual sci-fi reveal: a relic, a weapon, maybe a machine. But what surfaces feels organic and aware. The brilliance of the Harvester lies in its restraint. The story unfolds almost wordlessly, letting texture do the storytelling. The camera lingers on the man's face, sun-scarred, desperate, as he realizes the ground itself is responding. The low hum turns into a pulse. The sand begins to move like liquid. The viewer becomes the second scavenger leaning closer, wanting to know more, but fearing the answer. It's a short film built entirely on mood, and it delivers. The special effects are minimal, but striking puppetry dust, clever sound layering. It feels handmade in the best possible way, like a forgotten relic from the 1970s sci-fi wave, where atmosphere mattered more than action. By the end, you're left unsure whether the discovery is salvation or punishment. That ambiguity is what makes The Harvester so memorable. It's not about what's found, it's about what finding means in a world that's already lost everything else. Number 9. Roe and the Stardust, 2022. Sometimes science fiction doesn't have to save the world. Sometimes it just has to save one dream. Roe and the Stardust is a warm, gentle short about family memory and the human desire to reach the unreachable. It begins in a quiet suburban home where a teenage girl named Roe tinkers with a rocket made from scrap parts. Her grandmother frail but sharp-witted watches with a mix of pride and disbelief. Together they plan to launch it not to space but to say goodbye. Director Michelle Tran crafts something that feels like a bedtime story told under a blanket of stars. The film doesn't rely on spectacle. Its power comes from small gestures. Roe adjusting her grandmother's blanket, the hum of a soldering iron, the flicker of candlelight bouncing off their faces. Through flashbacks, we learn that the grandmother once dreamed of being an astronaut, but never had the chance. Now through Roe, that dream gets one last spark. The rocket's eventual ignition scene is beautiful, sparks, tears, laughter. The film's handmade effects echo early Spielberg when wonder came from heart rather than hardware. Even the soundtrack swells with nostalgic sincerity, mixing soft piano with faint radio static, as if the universe itself is listening in. What makes Roe and the Stardust shine is how it balances imagination with emotion. It reminds you that science fiction isn't just about the future, it's about longing the human kind. Every launch begins with love, and every sky holds someone's memory. It's rare for a short film to make you both smile and ache at the same time. This one does. Watch it when you need to remember that the stars don't belong only to scientists. They belong to dreamers, too. Number 8. Hept, 2018. The first thing you notice about Hept is how little it tells you. There's no exposition, no narration, just a man in a gas mask wandering through a ruin-choked valley. He's following a trail of small glowing markers, or maybe they're leading him. The mystery deepens with every step. Who placed them there? What are they guiding him toward? And why does he keep hearing footsteps when he's supposed to be alone? Director Finn Blackwell shot Hept with minimal dialogue, but maximum unease. The film's palette is all gray fog and flickering light somewhere between Stalker and the road. The sound design is genius wind breathing and the occasional click of something mechanical watching from afar. As the wanderer follows the trail, the lights start moving faster, almost playful. What began as guidance turns into pursuit. You realize the hunter may have been bait all along. The climax, when the truth about the markers is revealed, is equal parts revelation and dread. What makes Hept special is how confidently it trusts atmosphere over explanation. The film feels like a recovered transmission, no clear answers, just fragments of a world that once was. Every rusted bridge and broken pipeline tells a story, and yet beneath the tension there's melancholy. The protagonist doesn't fight the strange presence. He accepts it, almost welcomes it. It's a quiet acceptance that sometimes curiosity is its own ending. Short, haunting, and beautifully shot, Hept captures the essence of lost world science fiction, where discovery and doom walk hand in hand. It's the kind of short you think about long after it fades, wondering what might still be glowing out there in the fog. Number 7. 97%, 2016. Not every apocalypse needs fire. Sometimes it's just math. 97% begins with a voiceover. When the number dropped, no one celebrated. The film drops us into a quiet world where humanity has nearly vanished, not through chaos, but through exhaustion. Only a sliver of people remain clinging to routine and trying to define what civilization means when there's barely anyone left. Director Ben Falk paints this near future with documentary realism. There are no explosions, just wide shots of empty streets, flickering billboards, and abandoned trains still running on automatic schedules. A lone woman rides one of those trains every day, speaking to no one, writing in a notebook, as if she's keeping time itself alive. The radio still works, but every station plays the same pre-recorded optimism from a world long gone. The film's beauty lies in small details, the way sunlight cuts through dust, or how the last vending machine stubbornly dispenses a soda no one will drink. Through fragments of conversation and journal entries, we learn the woman once worked on population algorithms, the same ones that predicted humanity's decline with eerie accuracy. By the end, she discovers a faint signal on her radio. It's static at first, then laughter, real human laughter. The scene doesn't explain whether it's live or recorded. It just lingers on her expression as she dares to believe. 97% isn't about the end of the world. It's about the endurance of hope. The number might be low, but as the film suggests, survival was never about statistics. It was about faith in connection and memory, in the stubborn instinct to keep listening. Quiet, tragic, and weirdly comforting, it's the kind of sci-fi that doesn't shout. It just hums with life. Number 6. Reborn, 2021. Some stories begin with a spark. Reborn begins with dust. A lone figure wakes up on a barren planet, half-buried, gasping for air. Around him stretch endless dunes, shattered metal towers, and the soft sound of wind whispering through ruins. There's no memory of who he is, or why he's here, only a symbol etched on his wrist, glowing faintly like a heartbeat. Filmmaker Arturo Jimenez builds Reborn like a riddle told through visuals. The man staggers across the landscape, following flashes of light that seem to come from his own reflection. As he moves, we see fragments of his past, a family, a laboratory, a terrible decision. Each memory feels like a broken transmission trying to piece itself back together. The cinematography is jaw-dropping. Shot in Spain's desert regions using natural light, every frame looks like a painting. Gold dunes, cobalt skies, silhouettes swallowed by twilight. The soundtrack merges ambient tones with mechanical echoes, making it feel as if the planet itself is breathing alongside him. Halfway through, he stumbles upon a figure made of light. Not an alien, not a ghost, but something resembling his former self. Their meeting isn't a battle, but a reunion. The realization hits. He's not exploring a planet at all. He's exploring his own consciousness, rebuilt, after a failed experiment. He is both the creator and the creation. The title suddenly makes sense. Reborn isn't about resurrection. It's about acceptance the moment you stop running from who you've been. The film ends with silence, the camera panning upward to a sun that never sets. It's poetic, haunting, and remarkably beautiful for such a small production. Reborn feels like a lost chapter of 2001, a space odyssey rewritten for a new generation. If you love introspective sci-fi that finds humanity in solitude, this one will stay with you long after the dust settles. Number 5. The Lake in the Sky, 2020. What if memories had a tide drifting in and out like waves? The Lake in the Sky begins with that question and delivers a film that feels like dreaming with your eyes open. It follows a scientist named Clara who travels to a remote, high-altitude lake rumored to contain strange bioluminescent particles. The locals call it the mirror that remembers. She calls it research. But soon she realizes the water knows her name. Director Stephen Palin keeps the story small, mysterious, and deeply visual. Most of the film takes place on the lake's edge, mist rolling over dark water lanterns, flickering against the surface, and Clara recording whispers that echo back seconds later, slightly altered. Each time she speaks, the lake repeats her words, with tiny changes, as if it's rewriting her thoughts. The cinematography is stunning. The water shimmers in impossible colors, and the reflections show things that aren't happening, memories, futures, or maybe both. The soundtrack hums with underwater reverberations and faint voices like forgotten lullabies. It's eerie and beautiful at once. What makes The Lake in the Sky stand out is its emotional core. Clara isn't chasing discovery, she's chasing closure. The film never spells it out, but you understand she's mourning something or someone that slipped away long ago. The final moment when she steps into the glowing lake and becomes part of its memory lands like poetry. This isn't the kind of sci-fi that explains. It invites. It whispers. It makes you lean closer. For fans of Annihilation or Solaris, it's a quiet marvel that reminds you that the most profound discoveries often drown in silence. If science fiction had lullabies, this would be one of them. Number 4. Marie, 2019. At first glance, Marie looks like a love story. But underneath, it's a quietly radical piece of science fiction about connection, trust, and the fear of technology. The short opens in an Amish community, all candlelight woodwork and silence. A man named Eli, raised to shun machines, finds a wounded woman on the edge of his farm. Only she's not entirely human. Director Tom Jantol shot the film almost entirely with practical effects and physical puppetry, giving it a hauntingly tactile feel. Marie's mechanical parts aren't sleek or shiny. They're delicate, fragile, almost organic. As Eli tends to her injuries, the two begin a wordless exchange that feels more spiritual than mechanical. Every sound, the creak of wood, the hum of her gears, becomes part of their growing language. The film's genius lies in its simplicity. It doesn't try to shock, it tries to understand. The moment Eli finally touches her hand, and she responds with a faint mechanical heartbeat, is both unsettling and tender. You realize this isn't a story about man versus machine. It's about empathy versus fear. Visually, Marie is gorgeous. The candlelit interiors contrast with the faint glow of Marie's circuits, symbolizing the clash between belief and progress. The score, a mix of strings and low hums, adds an almost sacred tone. What makes it unforgettable is how it redefines the word machine. Marie is fragile, uncertain, and curious, just as human as Eli. The final scene with the two of them watching sunrise through fog doesn't offer closure, just understanding. Marie proves that great science fiction doesn't always happen in cities or spaceships. Sometimes it happens in barns, between two souls, realizing they're not as different as they feared. Number 3. Exodus, 2022. Some films shout about the end of the world. Exodus whispers it, and that makes it even more haunting. Set in a bleak near future where humanity has exhausted the Earth, a group of survivors searches for a new home beyond the solar system. But instead of focusing on the journey, the film turns inward, asking whether humans deserve another beginning at all. Writer-director Elena Kovacs uses minimalism like a scalpel. The crew's ship isn't sleek or heroic. It's cramped, dirty, and visibly failing. The walls flicker with fading code. The crew members record farewell messages to a planet they'll never see again. One engineer keeps replaying sounds of ocean waves while tightening bolts a small rebellion against extinction. What makes Exodus unforgettable is its tone. The film moves like a meditation, slow, deliberate, full of aching silence. The cinematography drips with melancholy, blue-gray light drifting dust, endless space outside. Yet, in that emptiness, there's strange beauty. Halfway through, they receive a transmission. It's not from another colony or alien life, it's from Earth. Somehow the planet speaks. The voice is mechanical, glitching, but unmistakably human. It thanks them and tells them not to return. That moment reframes everything. The mission isn't escape, it's exile. They weren't chosen to rebuild humanity, they were chosen to remove it. By the end, Exodus feels like a requiem for civilization, not angry, just tired. It's about consequence, humility, and the quiet idea that maybe the universe doesn't need us as much as we need it. Kovacs made it with a handful of volunteers and a garage full of recycled props, yet it feels vast. If you think low-budget sci-fi can't make you emotional, Exodus will change your mind. It's the sound of a dying world whispering, let go. Number 2, Nevin, 2023. Some films feel like myths told around digital campfires. Nevin is one of them, a surreal, dreamlike piece that mixes old folklore with futuristic mysticism. The story follows a young wanderer in a world where machines have inherited the spirits of gods. He carries an amulet made of circuitry that glows whenever truth is near. The question is, whose truth? Director Alexandra Mikhailova blends hand-drawn animation with CGI, creating a world that feels carved from both stone and light. Temples hum with power, rivers flow upward, statues whisper riddles in binary. Every frame is a painting rich in color and texture, fusing Slavic mythology with cyberpunk aesthetics. The narrative moves like a dream, non-linear, symbolic, and hypnotic. Nevin meets entities that resemble deities, yet act like malfunctioning programs. One asks him, "Do you seek meaning or maintenance?" The answer determines his fate. It's trippy, cerebral, and weirdly moving. What elevates Nevin beyond style is its soul. Beneath the visuals lies a universal idea. Humanity may fade, but its myths will adapt. Even in circuits, there's faith not in religion, but in memory. The film's pacing is slow, almost meditative, but every moment matters. The soundscape layers chants with electronic drones, creating something halfway between prayer and code. By the end, Nevin reaches a city made entirely of light, where every building sings his name. The final shot, his silhouette dissolving into circuitry, leaves you in awe. Nevin isn't traditional science fiction. It's an experience, a poem wrapped in pixels. For those who love films that challenge rather than explain, it's a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. It reminds us that even as we evolve, we still build temples, only now we plug them in. Number 1. The Spark, 2024. The spark begins in total darkness. A match ignites. Then a voice. Light is the oldest memory. What follows is one of the most visually striking short films on YouTube, a minimalist yet profound exploration of creation invention, and what happens when inspiration itself becomes sentient. The story follows an inventor living in a ruined world powered only by fragments of old energy. One night, his final experiment works a tiny sphere of living light that moves like a curious child. At first, it's beautiful. Then, it begins to learn. Director Noor Al-Hassan combines breathtaking visuals with emotional storytelling. The workshop glows with flickering lamps and dust-filled air, every spark of electricity feeling like a heartbeat. The inventor teaches the light to dance, to illuminate drawings, to follow his gestures. Their relationship grows like that of a parent and child. But brilliance has a cost. The light starts exploring on its own, spreading beyond his control. It discovers reflections, endless versions of itself. The inventor tries to capture it, only to realize that what he's created doesn't want to be owned. The finale, where the glowing entity rises into the sky and splits into 1,000 points, transforming the dead city into dawn, is breathtaking. No words, just light. The spark is short, simple, and transcendent, a metaphor for creativity itself. The things we build eventually outgrow us, and that's the point. Made on a minuscule budget by a 3-person team, it looks like it cost millions. Every flicker feels alive. Every frame feels intentional. It's a reminder that the brightest moments in art and life often begin with a single spark. If you only watch one film from this list, make it this one. It'll light something in you too. So there you have it. 15 hidden sci-fi treasures, each one crafted with more imagination than budget, waiting for you on YouTube right now. From lonely astronauts to talking lakes, from digital gods to glowing lights, these stories prove that science fiction's true power isn't money, it's vision. Which one caught your imagination first? Drop your favorite in the comments, share this list with a fellow dreamer, and remember, curiosity is humanity's greatest special effect.